5 numbers. Any one of the 5, sitting on a lab report you've already been given, is 60%. $1,435.02 a month. And there's a second code beside it that pays 100% for a fixed stretch of months, whether or not anything about you changes. Carry that with you. Look at the gland first, because this is where most of these go wrong. The parathyroids are 4 glands the size of a grain of rice, sitting behind the thyroid. Same neighborhood, completely different job, completely different diagnostic codes.
Think of it like 2 tenants in one building. Kai here. Share a wall, separate leases.
Erica, wrong gland, wrong code, wrong criteria. It happens constantly.
The thyroid runs your metabolism. The parathyroids run your calcium. So a parathyroid problem doesn't look like fatigue and weight change. It looks like kidney stones, thinning bone, and a calcium number nobody explained to you.
And the codes are 7904 and 7905, inside 4.119, the endocrine schedule.
Both things are true about this claim. The criteria are unusually generous, and almost nobody meets them on paper because the evidence is a lab value, and lab values don't put themselves into claims. If you want the plain language version with both codes laid out, it's free at va.richresourceful.com.
Before you go on, Erica, what are the 5 numbers?
They're printed in the code itself, and any single one of them is enough on its own. Let me pause for just a second because this genuinely helps. If you are getting value here, hit that like button, then subscribe and ring the bell. It costs you nothing, and it is the single biggest thing that keeps these videos coming. Look at the list itself. It's 1 sentence long, and it decides everything. Professor Duran is at the desk to settle a disagreement we had off-air. Thomas, read the 60% line.
Hold on, the argument isn't whether hypercalcemia rates 60, it's how many findings you need. The code says hypercalcemia indicated by at least one of the following. At least 1. Total calcium above 12, ionized calcium above 5.6, creatinine clearance under 60, a bone density T-score below -2.5 at any site, or a previous fragility fracture.
Nora, 1 out of 5, not 4 out of 5.
Circle the date on whichever one you already have. That's the claim.
$1,435.02 a month at 60% for a veteran alone, effective December 1st, 2025. Off 1 line of Bloodwork.
9 times out of 10, the value is already in the file and nobody pointed at it. The rater isn't required to go looking.
$1,400 a month per month for pointing at a number.
Wrong place to stop. 2 of the 5 aren't blood at all.
A bone mineral density T-score below -2.5 at any site. That's a DEXA scan, and plenty of veterans have had one for a completely unrelated reason. And separately, a previous fragility fracture.
Erica, define fragility fracture.
A bone that broke under a force that should not have broken it. The wrist you fractured stepping off a curb. The rib from a fall that everyone else walks away from.
And it says previous. It does not have to be recent, and it doesn't have to be diagnosed as fragility at the time. The finding is the fracture, and the code counts it.
So an old broken wrist is a 60% finding.
Alongside the parathyroid diagnosis, yes. And that's the single most missed line in this code because a fracture lives in orthopedic records and this claim gets filed as endocrine. 2 filing cabinets again.
Hold that fracture because it comes back when we get to the surgery clock.
Thomas is still with us for the clock. Thomas, the surgery provision.
100% for 6 months from the date of discharge following surgery, flat. It does not depend on how you recover.
I want to push on that, because 6 months of total pay for a gland the size of a grain of rice sounds like something the VA would have closed by now.
It's in the current schedule, and there's a second half people miss, where surgery is indicated. The existing evaluation continues until the day of surgery, and the 100% runs from there.
Take a veteran in the sourced case file, and I'll hedge this because I only have the file, not the man. 60s, service-connected, parathyroid tumor found on routine blood work after a wrist he broke years earlier finally got looked at properly. He waits 8 months for surgery and
waits at 60% or waits at nothing?
That's the hinge. He waits at 60 because the calcium finding was already in the record. Then the 6 months of 100% starts on top.
$3,938.58 a month for 6 months, following 8 months at $1,435, from 1 fracture and 1 calcium value.
Circle the date of discharge, not the date of surgery. The code says discharge.
Thomas, thank you. The until the day of surgery half is the thing I would never have read out of that sentence on my own.
Ask them what happens at month 7. That's where these get lost.
So answer Tomas. Month 7. The code says after 6 months, rate on residuals under the appropriate diagnostic codes within the appropriate body systems based on a VA examination.
Which is 4 separate claims wearing 1 code.
Kai, that's the right way to see it. Kidney function is geniturinary. Bone loss is musculoskeletal. Heart effects are cardiovascular. Each one has its own code and its own criteria. And the parathyroid diagnosis is what got you in the door.
And this is where I want to be honest about the downside because there's a real one. Month 7 isn't a negotiation. The 6 months ends on a date, and if nothing was measured before that date, the residual rating has nothing to sit on.
Nora, then the work happens in month 5, not month 7.
Circle the date, count back 60 days, and get the kidney and bone numbers taken while you're still being paid at 100%.
Both things are true again. The temporary rating is generous, and it's a countdown that nobody sends you a reminder about.
Wrong direction though, Kai. Everything so far has been too much parathyroid hormone. The other code is too little.
7905, hypoparathyroidism. 100% for 3 months after initial diagnosis. Note the trigger, diagnosis, not surgery, not discharge. The clock starts when somebody writes the word down.
And where does hypoparathyroidism usually come from?
Surgery on the neck, thyroid or parathyroid. The glands are millimeters apart, so an operation on one can leave the other underactive.
Which makes this one of the cleanest secondary claims in the whole schedule. 3.310 says a disability proximately due to a service-connected condition is itself service-connected. If your thyroid condition was service-connected and the surgery for it left you hypoparathyroid, the chain is 1 link long.
1 link. That's unusual.
And after the 3 months, the same residual logic: kidney stones, cataracts, decreased renal function, congestive heart failure. The code names them, which means the VA has already conceded they belong to this condition. You're not arguing the link. You're only proving the severity. Thomas is back to close this out. So here's the whole thing in the order you would actually do it.
Pull 3 numbers: calcium, creatinine clearance, any bone density result you've ever had.
Then add the fracture, if there's one, with its date, and it doesn't matter which clinic it lived in. Any one of those 5 findings alongside the diagnosis is the 60% tier.
$2,503.56 per month between the 2 tiers.
And if surgery is on the calendar, the 60% holds until the day of it. That sentence is worth reading twice.
Thomas, thank you. The waiting period being paid is the part I'll be repeating to people all year.
Read the note under the code every time.
My honest read on who this is for. If you've never been told anything about your parathyroids and your calcium has always been normal, this isn't your claim and no amount of filing will make it one. Go spend the effort somewhere with a real finding behind it. But if a doctor has ever said the word parathyroid to you, the evidence that decides this is already printed on paper you can request this week, and the criteria are more generous than almost anything else in the endocrine schedule. That's my verdict.
Give them the 2 things. People are already opening the portal.
2 things to carry. 60% under 7904 needs just 1 of 5 findings: calcium, ionized calcium, creatinine clearance, a T-score, or 1 old fragility fracture. And the 6 months of 100% runs from discharge after surgery, with the earlier rating held until the day of it. If this saved you a wasted filing, hit like and subscribe so the next veteran finds it first. I'll answer this one myself first. I would have assumed you needed all 5. So here's what I want from you. Has anyone ever shown you your own calcium number? Request the labs, then file. I'm Professor Erica, and I'll see you at the next one.